Chapter 3 of Section 2 is Lee, and Lee is the top commander of the Confederates, and his right-hand man is Longstreet. And like they were having a little problems in the first section, they're having even more problems now. Once the dynamic duo now becomes like the not dynamic duo. So what was happening is that General Stewart is also a part of the Confederate, and he was actually supposed to check the Union's position with the spy, but then he hasn't come back yet. So what Lee is predicting is that he's out there joyriding. And what joyriding means is that like he kind of escaped like from like the war danger, and he's just riding off to his family or somewhere else, joyriding. And that is actually a crime just because he has committed himself to the army. So they were going to court-martial Stewart, but then they didn't for a reason that I will not tell you yet. Actually, I think you should read it yourself. So what was happening is that Lee was frustrated that Stewart wasn't coming back. There hasn't been any news from the Union because the spy has done their job and now they're free to go. So they don't have any news on the Union. What Longstreet decides is that, so he arrives at the scene and then he realizes that General Heth is in danger. Not in danger, but he's wounded. And that is informed by General Hill. See, there are a lot of characters. So he hasn't been informed, and then what actually happens is that the Confederates kind of like push the Union forces back. Even though General Heth was wounded and the Union forces kind of beat the Confederate at Cemetery Hill, that's not the only place. So what happened was Buford's unmounted men were now mostly hurt. And now his cavalry, some of his horses were left unmounted, and that was not good. Like the horses could run away, and they were actually one of the biggest parts. So what happened was Longstreet arrived at the scene and realized what was going on. He thought that the Confederate were at an advantage just because they pushed the Union back a little bit like towards the ridge, the Cemetery Ridge from Cemetery Hill. So Longstreet decides that we should go around the Union troops and try to attack Washington D.C. and the Union troops from the back and not the front. But then again, Lee decides, no, that's too dangerous. What's going to happen is that the Union troops are going to find out. The Union troops are going to send all of them to Washington, D.C., and we're all going to die, and we're going to lose this battle. So what was happening was that there was a debate between those two, and they couldn't figure out what to do. And then, while those two were arguing, General Heth was getting more and more wounded, and General Hill didn't know what to do because he didn't have any orders yet. So what was happening was that even though the Union seemed like they were at a disadvantage because they were pushed back, it was more like the Confederates were at like a mental disadvantage because they couldn't figure things out. They weren't working together as a group, and believe it or not, cooperation was like one of the biggest things, even like in the old days. That is chapter 3. Unlike the first 3 chapters, the 4th chapter of section 2, it's more like emotional and it goes in depth about the title. And realize how I haven't mentioned the title like I always do in the beginning, what it means and all that. That's because it kind of like, you can kind of catch a glimpse of the title in this chapter. This chapter is Chamberlain. He is the commander of the Union, and his name is Joshua L. Chamberlain. He has a brother. His name is Tom Chamberlain. So chapter 4 is actually pretty short, but then it has meaning and not just like fighting, blood, shooting, killing, dying. So before I tell you about Joshua and Tom Chamberlain's conversation, I wanted to mention Dan Butterfield. I know it's a weird name. So in the army, what do you think is most needed in the army? Artillery? Men? Sure. But what you need more is kind of bonding, cooperation. If you don't have communication between the army and your generals and your lieutenants and your soldiers, well, how are you going to win the war if you don't work together? So that is kind of what Dan Butterfield means. Dan Butterfield is not someone that is like a general or lieutenant. He's not a fighter in this book. He's just someone that he's mentioned as this kind of memory, and there is actually a song for Dan that's really all about Dan Butterfield, and it kind of bonds the army together, and it really helps with the cooperation and stuff of the Union Army. So now into Tom and Joshua Chamberlain's conversation. So their conversation was kind of like what I said about the causes of the Civil War. So they were kind of slowly getting the topic about slavery, and like, oh, what do you think this war started anyways? So actually Tom Chamberlain, General Chamberlain's brother, said that slavery is the issue. It's literally the only issue that there could be. And then the Joshua Chamberlain fought against that. He's like, no, there has to be another reason. Slavery can't be the only reason. And then, just hear this. Tom Chamberlain said that he referred back to a story that one of his colleagues told him. And he said, the killer angels inside us. So in the Chamberlain Bros conversation, the topic about that came up. So I'm gonna actually read a direct passage, and it's gonna get you goosebumps. Okay. Once Chamberlain had a speech memorized from Shakespeare and gave it proudly. The old man listening but not looking, and Chamberlain remembered it still. What a piece of work is man! In action, how like an angel. And the old man, grinning, scratched his head, and then had said, stiffly, well, boy, if he's an angel, he's sure a murdering angel. And Chamberlain had gone on to the school to make an oration about the subject. Man, the killer angel. What do you think that means? The killer angel? That's like an oxymoron, like the big shrimp. Is it the big shrimp? Fat shrimp? Smokey shrimp? Something about big shrimp. Okay, anyways, so the killer angel. And remember how it said that he's sure a murdering angel. Realize how it said he's, not it's or she's. He's sure a murdering angel. So I didn't get that. I'm like, well, wait, okay, so an angel's like he, and then the he angel murders people, but he's an angel. Turns out it's a metaphor. Yeah, there's a lot of metaphors in this world that we don't know about. So, he implies men, soldiers, shooting, dying, killing, murdering. So, I might sound really weird now. Okay, so an angel is known to be pure, good-hearted, warm-hearted. They're saying that everyone is an angel when they're born. It's just the thing that some of them are soldiers, commanders, they're just killer angels. They're just, they in their minds, they don't want to kill them. But what they're thinking in their mind is, wait, it's survival of the fittest. To kill or be killed. That is literally war. If you don't kill that person, they have a gun, they're gonna shoot you. So you really have no choice. I mean, you got family to go back to, you have friends, you have love to go back to. So you really don't want to sacrifice all that. That's all the mind of an angel. You don't want to kill anyone, but you have to. You have to sacrifice them. You have to sacrifice them in order to survive yourself. That sounds really jerky. But that is the concept of the killer angels. And now I am introducing the title. That I'm pretty sure concludes chapter 4.